Hello, I'm Norman Robinson, and welcome to NOLA Crime Crisis, a show created to open the dialogue and discuss the possibilities of finding solutions and preventative techniques in order to establish a stronger and safer city of New Orleans. And joining me now, an avid crime fighter herself, the CEO of Crime Stoppers of New Orleans, Ms. Darlene Cusanza. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Norman.
I always start this program off by getting a sample of what the general public is thinking. Mm-hmm. So we have a clip from someone who's going to be talking about their concerns about safe schools.
Sure.
So let's listen to that clip and have you respond to it.
Okay.
I feel like my son is safe at his school, but after recent events, I feel like they've had to, put extra policemen there, put policemen on the roof, put policemen at the entrances, lock the doors. They've had to take a lot of measures to make sure the teachers and the administration and the staff have had to take a lot of extra measures to make sure the students are safe.
Sounds scary to me.
Right.
I mean, we're in a situation now where this is becoming more and more prevalent. And I got to tell you, I'm learning about, since joining Crime Stoppers, I'm learning about the Safe Schools program that I didn't know a lot about before. Right. And I used to hear, because when I was a newscaster, I would say, call Crime Stoppers at 81111, and it would almost be a throwaway line.
Right, exactly.
And you almost don't even consider the weight that really carries.
Right, and it's probably the most likely number for you to remember. I know when my son was growing up, he knew that number before he knew our home number. Teacher said, "We have a problem here." You must be saying that number a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, you really lose focus of what the intent is, and the intent behind the phone number or our Safe Schools app, or however you're going to get us. You're going to text us. You're going to send us something over a web portal. It's about having a voice. And we're the eyes and the ears, and you're talking, you're hearing this more and more about if you see something, say something, or speak up. We have to understand that information is vital in a lot of instances to preventing crime, not just solving crime, but preventing crime. And when you hear this, this mom talking about her, her child in school. Schools have changed in the sense of what our kids are dealing with. Mm-hmm. And it can be simple bullying, and a lot of times I say bullying is never simple. I mean, because bullying now follows you for the rest, everywhere.
Yeah,
where you and I
media,
didn't, with social media. Mm-hmm. So these kids, they never get a break. So absolutely allowing kids a place to vent and provide information that adults can take and use to investigate, help, whatever it is, to help prevent further issues. Incredibly important.
For the average viewer, which is probably like me, who doesn't really understand or know the inner workings of what Safe Schools is all about, how does that work for Crime Stoppers? How does that work for your program? What are the statistics? What are the numbers? What are the cases that you're dealing with, and what types of incidents have you come in contact with where you've been able to prevent the kind of crisis that this mother was talking about?
Absolutely. So for us, starting with the basics, Crime Stoppers has always allowed citizens to give us information. It used to just be a hotline. Kids don't call hotlines, so that now there's an app. But they are able to give us information for a school to investigate. That information can be certainly criminal in nature, because we all know kids know and hear things.
Sure.
It can be school infractions. It can be mental health concerns. And I want to say up front, we're not the suicide hotline. That's not who we are. And we always let students know that, or schools know that. But we're getting information from students who their friends are reporting information. And that's what we're hearing it, from my friend wants to commit suicide, or they've tried to commit suicide. They're not feeling like anybody's listening. These are the things that are happening. Could be harassment, could be dating violence. Whatever these key issues are that the kids are seeing now, they can give us that information. So it empowers schools to have a proactive approach, because all of our information goes to the schools. The schools sign up with us. On our school teams, it has to include a counseling person. So if you're getting that mental health concern, somebody in their counseling preview of that organization, of that school district, or that individual school is going to see that information. If it's criminal in nature, and we have to involve law enforcement, if there's a threat, somebody's coming out to blow up the school, law enforcement gets that information immediately. And I think the other important thing for Crime Stoppers is, we're 24/7. We're an answering service.
Yes.
So when you're looking at programs that are just, let me text a tip and it goes out into text land, or just an email or whatever it is, and it's not eyes really watching this and reading this information and vetting what's serious and emergency and not, it's not quite the same approach. So we have an answering service besides our staff that looks at this 24/7, and we're engaging with whoever needs to be engaged with on the school side immediately, so there's no delay.
So you get the feeling that this is something that's it's amorphous. It's not something that you really think about in terms of taking up a lot of time, a lot of calls. I mean, how active is that?
Well, for us, our program is now statewide, so we're in 600 schools and more coming. It's a service that's free. And last year we vetted, I want to say, with follow-up questions, because kids can have an engagement with us. It's not just send the information and there's nobody there listening. I think we did 15,000 tips.
15,000?
1,500 tips, I'm sorry, 1,500 tips
Okay.
in a year and a half. And it's just, it depends on the schools promoting it. So we're hoping that the schools are going to promote it, and we provide materials for them to promote it. But for us, for kids, it's whether you're a larger school, a private school, a public school, it doesn't matter. I mean, these kids are all still using this service. And I say that because just this past week, we actually had a suicide threat by a student who had threatened suicide before, and their friend was telling us, please, the family doesn't quite, feel comfortable talking to counselors, but this person is now, doing other self-harm behaviors, and really gave examples of things that had happened over the last couple of, months. And for the school to have that information and get to the right person and intervene is incredible. And that came from a friend. So that's the kind of things that they don't realize when you have these services, how powerful they really can be.
So how do you build trust? How do you build public trust? Enough trust that people would turn to safe schools or Crime Stoppers.
So for us,
help.
with the students alone, okay, so all of our program, our marketing pieces that we use were developed by kids.
They were developed by kids?
Developed by kids. The kids' images, the messages. If you look at our training video that we give to schools to use, and again, it's free, it's kids. And what we did is we ask questions. We're like, tell us, what do you think this means? Why would you use this? And all of the kids that they're seeing in these videos, it's real. They were in high school. These are issues that they are concerned about. And I always tell the school systems when I go speak to them, in our training video that we're using currently, there's a young man in the video. We never knew. We just went out to school saying, anybody want to be in the video? And he kept talking about gun violence. And gun violence. And you could see that he was really nervous when we were doing the filming. And I pulled him aside. I said, let's talk. And what I found out is his best friend was killed on Christmas night. He was, not the intended target, was shot in New Orleans about a year before we taped this video.
Wow.
And so you never know what these kids are being involved in and seeing and feeling. And it broke my heart because here we were a year later, and he's pleading, send a tip if you know about guns. So that's why it's real. And that's why kids, I think, tend to believe in it. Certainly they know the name of Crime Stoppers. It's an international organization. But yeah, they've got to see others like themselves giving the message.
So when you're talking about expanding this program, what are your challenges?
Our challenges are always funding, because obviously every school we adds additional monies to the back end of that. It's also getting schools to understand the importance of using services like us. We're all so busy, and schools are so busy.
Sure.
So it's letting them see the opportunities they have with gathering of this information, and most are so excited when they're like, oh, I can see how this will help me in other areas, how building programs. The other big thing for us with our program is that it's not just an app or hotline, we do trainings behind it. So we do multiple educational programs, and I have staff that go out. I'll go out. I just did a leadership training program in Jefferson Parish. I'm getting ready to go do another one to about 100 students. But we go out and we teach different topics. We do suicide prevention talks. We talk about kindness. We talk about domestic violence, we're dating violence. This is something that you're seeing right now. Kindness is cool. So we talk about how to be kind and the importance of this. And this is a chain. This just happened this week. It's a chain of all the different messages that the students want to give other students about being kind, because it starts with us. And when you're not kind and you're doing behaviors that are really harmful, back in the day, we might have made fun of somebody's shoes or somebody.
Sure.
Now they're threatening. I mean, it's bullying's different. So we talk a lot about how you can be kind, how you can be an advocate for your friends, and all of that takes time and energy, and there's a cost behind that. But for schools, having someone else come in and talk to their kids, it's you're never a prophet in your own backyard. It's the same philosophy. So we look to do that more, and we've had success with it. So we know that it's a way to get kids to feel comfortable sharing information that they know about that topic. And we get tips. Once our person's in there or I'm in there speaking, the next day you see a lot of tips coming through.
What do your statistics look like in terms of what you're hearing, the kind of contact that you make,
right.
and
So
the kind of difference that you've managed to make?
Right. So you asked, how successful have we been? Success for me is not, it's prevention. Obviously, so if we say we're able to prevent problems, that's incredible. We've seen our tips change. Where in the beginning, because I've been doing this a long time, when I first started out in our schools in New Orleans, you were having a lot of tips on fights. You're getting weapons, we're still getting weapons and things like that. We weren't seeing tips so much on, I'm going to blow up the school type, I'm going to come shoot the school up. That wasn't happening as often. We do have that. We have prevented school shootings. We've had arrests made from that in different parts of the state. We've changed more now to the mental health concerns. You've got a lot of students who are reporting things about, unhealthy behaviors that they're seeing in their friends, including abuse in the home. Could be trafficking. People are being profiled and being trying to be set up for trafficking. But that's where we've seen a big change. And for me, the success has been that multiple of these kids have received services. And again, the tip that we just got, that kid did receive services. So we've had several that were hospitalized because of the information that was given to us. So invaluable that someone took the time to send the tip, and that's probably now 30% of
How
our
do
tips.
you've been doing this a long time? It's as long as I can remember, and I've been doing this a long time.
I know, we were on training wheels,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. How do you stay relevant?
How do we stay relevant? Well, first off, we make sure that we know what the trends are in the schools. So when we go out and talk to kids, we take that information back, and this is how we need to do the programming. We do the same thing when we're talking to the teachers. What are y'all seeing? What are your concerns? And again, that's what makes us unique. We can customize, where some of the programs that are out there that are sold nationally is not going to customize. And then we try to find champions in the community. So we're working on a bullying program right now for high schools and a videotape. And bullying is not what we think it is, so we're talking about harassment and harm. So to be relevant, we're getting a school counselor, actually 2 different counselors, to appear in the video. And let's talk about what you're doing after the fact. How are we helping these students? So it's
So bullying,
opening.
when you take the subject of bullying, it's like when we were in school, a bunch of us old timers would sit around and say, "Oh, the kids are just too soft today. they just have this thin skin. They can't take the heckling or the joking or kids are not as strong as they used to be."
Right.
So how do you deal with that mentality?
Well, that's not the mentality now, I don't think, because I think bullying has changed. Again, because your reach, when somebody takes and does a burn page on you, it tells you to kill yourself.
A burn page.
Yeah, it's like, we don't want Darlene in school, and everything Darlene does, and go kill yourself. And we see this, go kill yourself. Nobody wants you, nobody likes you. It's that vicious. It can be that vicious. It's not just, oh, we don't like the blue dress that you wore today. And for kids, there's a lot of kids who don't like that. So it's promoting those kids who want to be the helpers, who want to speak up, to want to stop that, behavior. And then it's also surrounding those who are the victims with people that care. So, I think that's where we're seeing the messaging has changed. And you have a lot of national message groups that are doing that, are doing a great job with that, but we're incorporating that to us. And then it's in high school, in some schools, it's harassment. It's threats. We hired interns, and I have 2 interns that actually just graduated from public school last year. And they're crafting some of the language in this video, and they were saying that, you know, kids, it's a threat. It's, you know, I'm being threatened that I'm going to follow you and do something after school to you, and it's, you know, not like you and I, let's go fight and have it over with.
Yeah.
It's much more advanced threats. So, you know, this is what kids are saying they're seeing in these different areas. You know, that's different.
Yeah. So one would ask then, how significant is this in, you know, the idea of stopping crime from happening?
Well, I think it's significant for a couple of ways. One, it's going to prevent things from happening. If there's a school threat that somebody's threatening to shoot the school up, excuse me, obviously that's very significant that we're able to solve that crime, or whatever it is, drugs on campus, vaping on campus, whatever. But even more important than solving the crime for law enforcement or for the school system, it's teaching people to advocate for themselves, teaching people to advocate for others. It's prevention in its true sense of ability. It's giving you the power to change things. And I think for our students, we miscalculate how many kids want to do the right things. It's the greater majority of the kids want to be able to be part of the solution. They don't want to be part of the problem. So to me, it's immensely important that our schools are using these type of services and taking advantage of them.
How important then is it to have a collaboration with law enforcement in this regard?
It's important for those issues that are crimes. You know, there obviously, if somebody's threatened, I have a gun, I'm going to come, you know, shoot someone, we have to have law enforcement involved to make sure that the appropriate action takes place. If it's a student suffering a mental health concern, obviously that's not law enforcement. Though for us, if we get that call in the middle of the night or that tip, law enforcement is the one who's going to go out and do the welfare check. They're going to make sure this kid's okay. They're going to make sure there's an adult there. So that component there is critically important. But I think last but not least, it shows students that law enforcement can be their ally. You know, there needs to be a positive message there, or a positive partnership, because you may need this, you know, may need that angle.
Are there cases where a horrendous crime has taken place involving a youngster, and you wish that Crime Stoppers could have done something
Well, certainly
to keep that from happening?
Right, certainly.
And I'm speaking specifically of the 14-year-old kid who was killed on Chet Highway.
Yep.
Last week, I think it was.
Yes, it was last week. So I think for kids who have friends that they know are involved in things that are dangerous and could lead to this kind of, you know, result, I think having them the opportunity to know that they can report it through this process and be anonymous. No one's going to get their information. No one's going to ask them to come up and testify or be a witness or whatever. I think is very important for that child and also for those families. You know, other instances, you know, the young man who was killed on Christmas, you know, where I met the young man who's in my video. I've become friends with his mother. And knowing that he was not the intended target speaks a lot to other children. That if you're seeing things happening, you know, if you speak up now, you can prevent this future act of another person being harmed. So I mean, any of those instances, and of course there's school shootings where, you know, people have not spoke up. Though statistically, you know, the Secret Service and the different agencies, federal agencies, say that if kids have the opportunity to give information anonymously, they have a much greater chance of sharing that information. And we've seen that here. I mean, we started this years ago after the shooting at John McDonough High School.
Wow.
Yes.
I remember that.
Remember
that was
that.
2004, was it?
Yes, yes, very good. And we actually we didn't have a hotline then, you know, in the schools, but we got the tips that actually helped make the arrest in that case. And, you know, that's when we started having the conversation. You know, we're seeing these things happen across the United States. We know that Crime Stoppers can be helpful in this arena. And, you know, we have been. And we have taken knives and guns off of campuses. We did a presentation several years ago, and it was in a junior high school. And someone came up to us.
A junior high
A
school?
little junior, you'd be surprised. In a junior high school, and I actually was at the presentation, and I had someone with me teaching. And at the end of the presentation, someone walked over and said, "Hey, I need to let you know there's a knife under the bleachers." And sure enough, there was a knife under the bleachers. So.
Oh my goodness.
So kids, you know, kids absolutely want to be safe, and they want to have a voice in that.
So what does Crime Stoppers need to have some real sustainability?
Certainly permanent sustainable funding it would be helpful, because we can continue to grow the services and the ability to help schools. We need volunteers. We need people who are committed in the community, who have different talents, to join with us. We also certainly could use different organizations who are out there. Let's collaborate, because there's so many good organizations who are able to do trainings or reach a certain pocket of neighborhoods that we haven't been able to reach, because we're a very small organization. So that collaboration, if we're all working with the same mission, which is truly, let's keep our kids safe and be there for our kids in our schools, we would love to hear from them.
The new governor is really committed, at least in his verbiage.
Yes.
He's committed to doing something about crime, specifically crime in the New Orleans area. How involved is Crime Stoppers in this effort?
Well, we certainly work with all the partners that are working in the New Orleans area. And one of the things that we have done before, when the troop was here from state police and they're here coming back,
yes,
hopefully permanently possibly, we share our tips for their investigations. So the information that we get in not only goes to local, it's going to go to the state, it goes to federal. We will have a great partnership with the U.S. Marshals. So we're going to be very engaged, we hope, on the ground floor with them. And if there's certain trends or wanted individuals that they are going to be working on, we certainly would partner with them to help promote that, offer the rewards that we offer, and be whatever of assistance that we can be. We already do things with gun crimes. We're always looking to get the gun that's used in a crime. We're not talking about just, it
Right.
has to be linked to a crime. But we'd love to offer that to them if they have any special new campaigns in that area.
So you said you had a collaboration with them previously when they were here.
And we've already talked to them now.
So you have had a conversation with them?
Yes, we have. And the gentleman, actually one of the assistant commanders, was somebody who worked on the task force with us last year. Actually, the new colonel of the state police actually worked with us when he was over at the Fusion Center, so he knows Crime Stoppers very well. Which is wonderful, because he saw the ability of how the anonymous tips can help them. So yeah, I'm looking forward to having the extra boots on the ground through all the districts, not just obviously the downtown area, and hopefully be a bigger role than what we're playing now, because there's more bodies to be able to share that information with.
Yeah, I thought about calling you and having you appear on this program, because it became more and more clear to me how important Crime Stoppers is, especially with the Safe Schools program. After I watched a story on the national news about a father and son in San Diego who were planning to shoot up a high school. Now, the father and son were going to team up. And the son had been putting messages out on TikTok about how upset he was or concerned he was about the school, and how he wanted to go in and shoot him up. And somebody passed that information along to the SAFE program out in San Diego, and they got the police involved and went to inspect the child's home and found a cache of weapons, and not only guns but grenades.
It's frightening.
So I'm looking at this surge in crime among teenagers and young adults, and I'm thinking that maybe it starts at school.
I think it starts very young, in the sense of what kids are exposed to and don't have resources for, as far as looking at other alternatives. Choosing role models that are not the best role models. I won't even go into video games, because there's science on both sides of that.
Yeah.
But I think what we're seeing our kids concerned about, and the levels it can go to is it's more serious than what we've seen 20 years ago. So for Crime Stoppers, with that, we're looking at our program. We're actually an international organization, Crime Stoppers.
It's an international organization.
There's a Crime Stoppers International, there's a Crime Stoppers USA. I'm proud to be an executive board member of Crime Stoppers USA. And what we do is we share best practices on how these school programs are working. What are the hot buttons? How are we able to get our information more accurately? And making sure that the teams are in place that can respond immediately. And I think when you're seeing those stories being told of the father and the son with this terrible plan, I mean, we would have hoped to get information not only from the school side, but possibly the community side. You know, the more and more that we're out there saying, these are the things that we look for, these are the behaviors that if you're seeing this, you know, let somebody know, do it anonymously. You may, you know, someone may have made that call saying, well, this gentleman has been at the, you know, gun store multiple times, he's purchased this kind of equipment, you know, we're concerned of what he's done in his neighborhood as a neighbor, you know, whatever that information would have been. But for us, everything gets passed along. So when you send me information, we're not just screening it saying, no, I'm not going to pass this along. We send it to law enforcement, we send it to, you know, whoever's in charge, school system, and then we ask for a response back. We actually ask for a disposition. And I think so that added accountability is also important for people to understand that we're not just, you're not being ignored. If you send us the information, it's not just being lost. You know, it's actually being looked at and hopefully acted upon.
Well, how do you get the public more involved in what you're doing, and how do you get your message out to the public that this is what they ought to be involved with and concerned about?
Right. Well, certainly the years of service that we've been around, people hopefully have a trust factor. But I invite anybody who's out there, you know, what about our Saints players? What about our Pelicans players? Any of our leaders, our community leaders, if you want to help share our message and be out there and be an ambassador for us and get that, you know, on social media, you know, however we can reach out, we'd greatly appreciate that, because this is grassroots. This is something that we know works, and we know that it just, you know, the more that's on the team, the better we'll be. So again, anybody that's watching and y'all want to help us be an ambassador, you know, give us a call.
And don't take that 822-1111 number for granted, right?
Don't take it for granted.
It's not a throwaway.
It is absolutely not a throwaway. You know, get to the app, the Crime Stoppers GNO community app, or the Safe Schools Louisiana is the school app. Get to the app. If your kids are in a school, and ask them, are y'all part of the Safe Schools program? Because the school does have to sign up to be part of it. It costs nothing for them to participate. And if they have ideas, I mean, if folks are out there, you know, do you have ideas about other ways we can branch out? You know, we're a very, again, grassroots organization. We listen to what the community wants, and we try to evolve to be able to help those particular needs.
The overriding point is, I guess, that that the more involved we become, the more effective we can become at trying to find some answer to the crime problem that we are experiencing.
Definitely. Use your voice. This can be your voice. You know, if you sit idle and you see things happening and you don't speak up, not only are you making yourself a target possibly, but you're making those around you. Use your voice, and this is a safe way to do it.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Cusanza.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We would like to thank Ms. Darlene Cusanza, the CEO of Crime Stoppers, for joining our program today, and we will see you next month as we continue our conversation and look for solutions towards stopping this onslaught of criminal activity. I'm Norman Robinson, and we will see you next time right here on NOLA Crime Crisis.